Good evening, everyone. Hunter here. Joining me also, I have TJ Neely, international author and Bigfoot researcher, as well as researching other things, and special guest Saxon Warlord, who also has a lot of experience in this on this particular topic with this particular creature. He is probably the most experienced person to talk about it. So this is a creature that's called the Zetta, and I wanted to introduce this a while back, but it was just too raw of a topic, and it's a theory that was given to me over a year ago by Saxon Warlord, and him and I have been talking about this and developing it ever since. And so since then, we brought TJ into the conversation, and we've gone back and forth, and I think TJ is now at a point that he's comfortable talking about this. And it's certainly not for everyone. Okay, this is a little different topic than your run-of-the-mill Bigfoot and Dogman kind of encounter, and this is going to probably challenge everything you think with regards to cryptids when we're done here. But be patient, be open-minded, and ask yourself, what if? What if this is true? And by the end of the series, things will start to fall into place. And if it's not for you, no worries. There are hundreds of good channels out there, and go find one and scratch that itch. So first of all, let me get some disclaimers and admin notes addressed before we proceed. So full disclosure, this presentation, episode 1 anyway, is really geared for researchers and investigators. And hopefully this might fill in some of the gaps in your research. So for example, how does Bigfoot and Dogman cloak? How do they disappear? Why do their eyes glow? And on and on and on. If you are a researcher and want to collaborate, all three of us, I think, are pretty open to that. I'm not going to provide you any absolute evidence on this theory, but I will provide you with enough circumstantial and supporting evidence to challenge your understanding of the cryptid world. If you're here expecting to just be entertained by some scary story, I'm sorry, but I'm going to fail to deliver on those wishes as well. Again, there's plenty of good channels out there for scary stories. So unlike everyone else, I'm not here looking for subscribers. I am currently not and am not pursuing monetization. I do not even plan on staying on YouTube. But this serves a purpose for the time being with regards to disseminating important information. And you can see by my channel, I do not put out a lot of content. I only do so when I think I have something worthy of sharing or alerting the cryptid community too. Also, we're not going to be releasing any classified material. While some of the information is obscure or not widely known or might be close hold in certain circles, I'm not aware of any classification for this material. This is either open source and is mostly provided by sources outside the government. So that's only important because there's going to be some window lickers and bedwetters that hope to become diversity hires at Reddit and Facebook that like to pretend they're smarter than me and everybody I have on my channel. And that's just for those trolls that are out there. So now, as researchers, we got plenty of layers of obstructions to get evidence or to complete our research. You got the government's not going to help you. The media is not going to help you. The scientific community is not going to help you. If anything, they will put up blocks to prevent you from finding out things. Okay, so just understand that us researchers are up against a very formidable group or groups that do not want you to get this information. And as the discussion progresses, we're going to tell you why they don't want you to get this information. And it all has to do with the creature we're going to talk about tonight, which is called the Zetta. So what is a Zetta? So a Zetta is a super intelligent super predator of which there's virtually no defense against them, at least not here on Earth. Now this being, as you might imagine, and as our discussion unfolds, will seem like trying to view the cosmos with a flashlight. And so we've broken this up into episodes to help make this a little more digestible for the audience. Not to mention, not all of it's going to be related to Bigfoot and Dogman. Now, I'm calling this a Zetta. There's another researcher that refers to them as the Orion group, another one that calls them the Mitri or Matri. And there are others that are not researchers that refer to them as the tall grays or tall whites. And so just like Bigfoot, the Zetta sometimes is known by different names in different circles. So, but before we do a deep dive into this, there's a few people I probably need to thank and recognize that have either their content's going to be presented on this or talked about here. And for those of you that got the homework assignment, you'll know what we're going to talk about. And we're going to lead into that here shortly. But special thanks to Steve from How to Hunt, Scott Carpenter, Duke from World Bigfoot Radio, and the folks at Bigfoot Odyssey, and Megan Rose and Leslie from Cryptids Canada, and many, many more. So a little about me, those of you that are unfamiliar with me, I'm a veteran, retired from the Army, currently a contractor to the Army, lots of field experience, combat experience, have worked at all levels of the Army, everything up to 4-star commands and the Secretary of Defense. Now that's only relevant because I have experience and am comfortable working and socializing in those different types of environments. So as a hobby, I investigate cryptid encounters, do research on the unknown. I've also been a student of Near Eastern, pre-biblical ancient history for the last 30 years, something that, TJ and I both share that interest. So we talk about a lot of pre-biblical stuff. We're usually on the same page with a lot of our studies have paralleled. So having seen the things I've seen and experienced, I think what has driven me closer to studying and understanding human behavior and the whole human experience and the preservation of humanity, and I know that probably sounds weird in this kind of video, but it'll make sense by the end. We get through the series, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Now, TJ and Saxon Warlord both have longer resumes than mine, but it's really not about us. But before I go any further, TJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I too am retired military, did a full 21 years. Most of it was in the special operations side. Been around the world a few times, used to parachute into work. It was high adventure every day. But my interest in my research became focused in this particular area of cryptids way back in 1984 when I actually encountered a 9-foot 4-inch Bigfoot right up front and close one night in the Wenatchee Forest in Washington State. And I'll tell you that once you see one of these things up front, the first thing the skeptics do is they stop asking for evidence. They stop asking for proof, and then they start demanding more information so they can learn more about what these creatures are and what they have experienced. So that has been my quest, and that's been the path that I've been on basically as a hobby, like what Hunter said, since 1984. I even wrote a book about it. I'm halfway through doing my second book because I got way too much material to share. And I just have to say, I'm just honored to be in the presence of you two gentlemen here this evening, because I have known for probably the last 5 years, just through my research alone, that there has to be an entity above the deep state or the cabal that we have discussed in the past, that is basically, quite literally, the handlers of all of humanity, the ones that are calling the shots. And I have not, or was not able initially to put my finger on who they may be, but as time goes by, we start getting closer and closer to identifying the entities that are calling the shots, those responsible for all the life-changing events that have happened to mankind and our planet for millennia. And if that doesn't grab your interest, then, and spin you around and head you in a direction to want to learn more for yourself, then I don't know what will. But that's where I'm at today.
Great. Thanks, TJ. Mr. Warlord, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
No, I am a military intelligence analyst, retired, and I've been in direct contact with several individuals that are deeply involved in operations that are ongoing, which have to do with the saving of this planet as I speak. I met this individual on a YouTube video because I put some information out that I thought was going to put my place, in front of the line, so to speak, in information. And he topped it. And that impressed me. And I tried to come up with that. And he put up something about the Sasquatch, which I had only been investigating for about maybe a year or two, and he put something up like, I forgot exactly what it was, but it was something like, it's not that they have the ability to cloak. It's that they are above the human spectrum and we can't see that frequency. And frequency is actually what they mean by different dimensions. It's not their different dimensions. It's a very different frequency. They are living in a higher frequency than us. And that information I had never heard of before when it came to Sasquatch. And he floored me with that. And from that point on, I reached out to him and we had a conversation over just in the YouTube comment section pretty much. And then things transpired kind of dramatically because I said, I'd like to learn more about what you know. And prior to even giving my email address, I said, I'd like to meet with you on a different platform just to get more knowledge, because I knew with the amount and the quality of information that this guy was dropping, he was either military or three-letter agency or from somewhere else that I've never even heard of. And 10 minutes later, I received an email. I didn't give him my email address. How the hell does that happen?
Yeah. All right.
So that's pretty much what happened. And I have been in touch with this individual for almost a little over 2.5 years. And he's provided me information that would absolutely turn you white, even whiter than you are.
So thanks so much for laying that out for everyone. So let's talk about a little bit about the homework assignment. So the first thing that I had you ask you guys to look at was the video of the alleged Dogman running across a guy's backyard in Florida, a guy by the name of Blue. So when I first saw that, I thought, that doesn't look like a Dogman. It doesn't look like the Dogman I saw. Most people haven't seen a Dogman, and pictures aren't allowed to be on the internet and all this kind of stuff. And that's all part of the control to keep certain things secret, and which we're going to talk about that in another episode. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves right now. But so TJ, when you watched that video, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, it was interesting from start to finish how Dark Waters.
Well, wait, you're getting ahead. So the initial video.
Okay, video.
You see this giant gangly looking thing running across this dude's backyard. And it's blurry and
okay, just on appearance, just on the raw video, what I saw, it was not a Dogman. The color was off. It was blurry. It was hard to really determine, but for me, it was like, that's something other than a dog man. And then it wasn't until I think a little bit later in the interview with Dark Waters where Blue actually described what it was he saw. And you don't describe a dog man that way whatsoever. Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he starts off calling it a daddy long legs, and then he says, actually, when it ran across, I thought it looked like a big ass albino frog running on its two legs, and he said too, I believe, if you pay attention to his words, he said that just before he closed the door in shock, it turned and looked at him as it was making his way across the yard. So he actually got a pretty good view of it, and he was telling Dark Waters what he thought it looked like, and Dark Waters immediately defaults to it's a dog man, and anybody who doesn't agree with that is a liar. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, you're not listening to the actual witness who's describing what he saw. So basically, that witness's account and description backed up my initial thoughts that no, that was something other than a dog man, just based on that short glimpse of what I saw in the video.
Right. Yeah, I kind of had that same opinion when I watched the video. I'm like, why are they calling this a dog man? I mean, that is so far different than the dog man that I saw that I thought maybe I was missing something. But as I dug further into it and socialized a little bit, then when I finally heard the interview with Blue, I'm like, exactly. That's exactly what it's. I wasn't sure he was going to call it a giant albino frog-looking thing, but I knew that he saw it and he identified it different than what everyone's claiming it was. So,
what's unique here that I think I need to call out is this particular site where Blue is living is rich. Something's going on there because just in listening to him describe the activity that he's experiencing there, I think he identified 3 different unique species all together. I mean, the thing that showed up his back door, the thing that his friend saw, the other thing that stepped out of the woods and looked at him and said, hey, I'm here, and then backs back in, to include the other thing that runs across his backyard. So, I mean, that's a hot spot in my mind.
No, I agree. So Saxon Warlord,
I think there might be a base there. I think there might be a base, a Zeta base there.
So what do you think about that video?
I think the video is potentially the only verifiable video capture of a Zeta.
That's not on the dark web.
That's not on the dark web. I sent that video to this individual who I've been in contact with that was in the military and is currently fighting the invisible war against the visible enemy. And he said that is a Zeta tarantuan. They are approximately 7 to 8 feet tall, extremely slender, with a insect-looking face and very pale in complexion, with a light gray or light brownish pinkish, with 3 fingers and 3 toes. And with that thing going across the screen as fast as it was extremely skinny. It was gray. It looked like it was gray. And he didn't describe it as having an insect head, but more of an amphibious head. But if it's running as fast as these things have been seen or known to go, yeah, you could probably have a tarantuan, be misdescribed as having a amphibious head instead of an insect head if it's running at like 80 miles per hour or whatever, as fast as they can run.
So
I think it's definitely conclusive evidence that it was not a dogman.
So for the uninformed, they're going to say that thing on the screen was like 15 feet tall. Well, I don't think it's that tall, but we have no, Blue didn't do any measurements for comparison for scale, so we don't know exactly what the estimated height of that creature would be. But yeah, so that was something that's been going around. Of course, it's not news anymore, but I wanted to bring that up, for that reason. Now, there's that. And so when we get to the next one, which was the Colorado Bigfoot on YouTube, and they filmed a gliding orb from their window looking down. Now, I watched that video, and the guy recording it called it an orb. And so I'm like, okay, it's an orb. And so I'm watching, and as you get further into it, I see things that could be interpreted as wings. Now, I couldn't conclude that it was wings. Again, the way light is dispersed, it would be real easy for someone to say, oh, I see wings. It's got to be a bird. Okay, well, what if it's not? And the way that in watching how this thing flew, it's at one point it slows down a lot and then it speeds off again. Now, in watching that portion of it, that did not look like something a bird could do. Slow down that slow and then rocket away. The bird's going to take off again, and you're going to see the speed increase over time. This thing, it was like back at its cruise speed, like that. So I don't know what to make of that. The guy watching it, recording it, called it an orb. What do you guys think?
That was no bird. Definitely not. The glide path that it followed, it flew in such an odd way. It didn't fly like a bird would. It was very erratic. It took weird turns, and birds just don't typically fly like that. They don't have that pattern, and they don't typically fly right above the tree line. Like it was like only like maybe like 5 or 6 feet above the tree line, above the canopy. Right. And the birds don't typically do that. You know what I mean? They either fly underneath the canopy or they fly higher above. I mean, this thing was trolling right above that canopy. And the way that it did it, it did it like it had intelligence.
Yeah. So those are good points. And what I would add to that was a bird typically flies from one place to another. Now you do have gliders and you got vultures, but they don't fly like that. They just they hang in the air. They let the thermals basically keep them afloat. You don't see them flap their wings a lot. And this thing was moving fast enough that I'm trying to think of a bird that would behave that way and move that fast. And, nothing comes to mind. So I'm gonna lean on the fact that it was an orb and not a bird, even though there's a portion towards the end where you see something that could be interpreted as wing flutter, by this orb or this thing. So TJ, what do you think?
Yeah, initially I thought it was a bird at first because he's trying to pan into it. It's at a little bit of distance. The actual orb itself, or the object that we're supposed to focus on, was pretty small. So, but what pushed me in the direction that it could be more of an orb than a bird is because it would slow. Its rate of flight, it would slow down and then speed up, and then it would drop down and then drop back up again and then slow down, and that was like, well, that's a little bit different. That's probably an orb, even though I personally have never seen an orb in real life. The only orbs that I've studied are from videos from other people. And but I would lean more towards that being an orb than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm trying to think, a bird just doesn't behave that way. And this seemed, as I'm watching this, it seemed like it was looking for something. And it had a
when you take into consideration that Zetas or the Zeta biopredatory civilization, the way that they travel when partially cloaked, from the description that this individual that I've been in contact with, this is identical to what he said. This is how they travel. And that may not just be one. There may be 20 in that one orb. There may be 100 in that one orb. They have the ability to travel as many as they can and share mass. They are able to share space. So you may have a orb in front of you. Typically, they're going to be white or a lightish blue color. And then once you see it, if you're able to see it in detail, you'll be able to see almost like a spaghetti-looking source of energy inside this. And there's multiple. There is the ability to have multiple Zeta beings, Zeta entities in that one orb. And to see that traveling the way that it was looking like it was looking for something, and it had intelligence, it had purpose to it.
Do you think that the number of occupants within an orb would increase the size of the orb, or does that matter at all?
They have the ability of making it as minute or as gargantuan as they need to be.
No matter how many it might be carrying. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's a good data point.
Yep. Okay. So let me see. What else did we look at? So I know that I've talked to both of you since then about Bigfoot Odyssey on YouTube, the interview with Mark, which I found to be very, very painful to listen to. But what it appears to me, what he's describing is, this is a man that's been researching Bigfoot for a long time, but it sounds like what he's describing is being attacked by Zetas and or maybe Zetta-Human hybrids. Those also are another creature, another being that was created by the Zetas, and we'll talk more about that as we go. But what did you think about that, TJ? I found it painful to listen to.
I did too. Matter of fact, I came away watching that whole video from start to finish with a page full of notes, because it kind of brought home a lot of points that reference being set up by the Bigfoot creatures, if this is in fact true, them working in coordination with the Zetas in the spirit of the game, the hunt. And you'd have to watch it all the way through that video in order to get all of the details that came out of it. But it kind of, years ago when I had this routine set up, I had a most awesome experience with multiple cloaked entities, and they basically escorted me back down to one of my gifting sites, because I'm very generous and I like to interact and just gift them out of respect and consideration and appreciation every now and then. It's not an everyday thing. They know the difference between feeding and gifting big time. That came clear a long time ago. But I was basically, for control purposes, I was escorted all the way there. They knew where I was going. They wanted me to arrive there at the right time point in time because they gifted me something back, and it was amazing. And that whole story is in the book. But when I listened to Mark's video, I mean, I had a freaking hair on the back of my neck standing up like, what if that would have been my time and I was set up for the kill? And you know what I'm talking about, Hunter. But it was very interesting, and how these things are outright blatant. They work, by deception. They're proud, arrogant. They feel like they're in control, and I think they have a completely different perspective of time. They seem to be very patient. They don't care how long the game plays out with human beings being the prey in this particular instance. I mean, as long as they find closure, or they come to an end state, with them winning the prize, and they're doing it by sport. It's not necessarily trophy hunting like we're doing. It's the thrill of the hunt, the chase, and I think they kill by sport, for sport. But anyway, I got a whole lot out of that video, and to include a chill up my spine.
So the thing I wanted to illustrate there was an example of a creature other than the ones we're familiar with that I was able to identify with Saxon Warlord as a Zetta and or a Zetta-Human hybrid involved in that. So Saxon Warlord, we got 2 minutes. What do you think about that video?
It was traumatizing to put yourself into that man's position. And any one of us, when thinking that could have been you or someone that you loved, one of your family members, it hit home, and it hit hard, because that could have been anybody. Any one of you that consider yourself a Bigfoot researcher, you have no idea the danger that goes with being in the same vicinity, the same territories that you would find Sasquatch. You find Sasquatch, there's Zetas with you. With their Zetas, there's Zetta-Human hybrids that were created purposely to kill you. And they were all over national parks and national forests, wildlife preserves, and conservation areas. They were released in these areas specifically to kill humans that came too close to Zetta bases.
Well, in this case, the guy survived and had a chilling tale to tell. Now, for those of you that have watched the video, I found it very, very hard to watch. I mean, this guy is basically crying and sobbing and having a mental breakdown in probably through a third of this video. But so we're out of time. What we're going to do is let's break and come back in 30 minutes. Is that okay with you guys? All right. Good evening, everyone. We're back from our break. Just a quick recap. We discussed the Zeta. We were discussing several different episodes of people having encounters with something that wasn't a cryptid we were used to talking about. So in the case, we did have Blue's video from Florida where this alleged dog man ran across his backyard. We all concluded that wasn't a dog man. And then we looked at the orb that was flying over Colorado. May have been a bird. The flight characteristics did not resemble that of a bird. So we concluded also that that was a semi-cloaked Zeta, which I haven't identified this, but a semi-cloaked Zeta is usually cloaked in an orb. So the people have Bigfoot sightings where they report orbs. That's because the Bigfoot's not there alone. The Bigfoot is actually being escorted or with Zetas, and they are partially cloaked, and a partially cloaked Zeta is in an orb. So when a Bigfoot partially cloaks, they can be detected not necessarily in an orb, but they can be detected by a partial outline that's not a complete cloaking. If they were completely cloaked, you wouldn't see them at all. And we're going to talk about somebody else that has a partially cloaked Bigfoot. And I have the pictures I will show as well. And so we completed discussing those two things. The next thing we talked about was the video from Bigfoot Odyssey. And that was Mark Barton. It was from the Trail of Bigfoot. Talks about his terrifying experience with a creature. And this creature, of course, wasn't Bigfoot. It was a Zeta, and with it, a Zetta-Human hybrid. So to talk to you a little bit about what the Zetta-Human hybrid is, imagine a creature that was specifically made to be a super predator that's mentally unstable, and it's released in our national parks. And it kills people, and it keeps the Bigfoot cloaked. It has many of the characteristics of the Zeta, but one additional one is it can kill a cloaked Bigfoot. And so you're going to see a resounding theme throughout these episodes with regard to Zeta. And it's about keeping secrets. It's about keeping their existence a secret. It's about keeping everything that they don't want humans to know a secret. Well, Bigfoot falls within that list of things they want to keep a secret. Bigfoot, Dogman, these other creatures that they've created, and the Zetta-Human hybrid had something to do with keeping the Bigfoot cloaked so that people wouldn't see them. And so we finished up that, and this guy, Mark, he had a terrifying experience that was unlike any others. And so if you guys haven't done that part of the homework, by all means, go and listen to it. It's a little hard to get through, so I began at probably the 17-minute mark. That's where I would start. And you're going to see a grown man that's been a long time Bigfoot researcher just break down. And that's not a good sight. But anyway, moving on. So now our next homework assignment had to do with Megan Rose on YouTube. So Megan Rose interviews a guy by the name of Robert Earl White. And the title of that episode is We Are the Disclosure. So what's unique and special about this particular video is that Mark has an encounter with an orb up close and personal. And he actually gets hit by a light from that orb. And so before we go any further on to that, what I'll do is I'll ask TJ what he thought about that particular homework assignment.
Well, I thought it was interesting right up front. He complained of a significant pain. He called it in his sinus, but he pointed at the middle of his forehead. What I think happened in order to receive and emit messages or transfer messages, I believe what they did instantaneously with that light beam would stimulate or activate his pineal gland. So he would open up that channel to where he could communicate. That was the first thing that kind of jumped out at me. The second thing is I believe that many folks are being systematically, they're being specifically chosen to receive special instructions, information, historical knowledge, even technical knowledge. And I think it was an honor for him in this case to be chosen by that particular orb with that purpose in mind, based purely on what he shared with us and what he came out with at the end. So, I mean, it's amazing to listen to these stories, but I believe they all have a purpose. And if there are more than him that this is happening to, then this could like snowball in other areas to the disclosure of new technology, a greater understanding of the history of mankind and beyond. So I think this is pretty interesting. It's all goodness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this one didn't have a sad ending like some of the others, but so Saxon Warlord, what did you take away from that Megan Rose interview?
It could have gone a lot worse. Let's put it that way. There are very few encounters or interactions with Zetas that have a non-horrific ending. Most of the time, if a human runs into a Zeta or a Zetta-Human hybrid, especially a Zetta-Human hybrid, they're not making it out of that alive. That said, the individual that enlightened me and awakened me to this other side of the world, he said that Zetas, millions of them, there were 2.4 million Zetas on this planet alone, and they go into various people's minds and they determine if you're worthy or not, if they want to use you for a specific purpose, or if they want to just screw with you because they have the ability to. In this particular case, they were, in the military, you would call it a show of force. I have the ability of showing you things that you couldn't dream of. This is what your family history looks like. This is what I know about you. So basically, it was a show of force, showing them their capability. And yes, it maybe have been a non-confrontational situation, but it might have also been of putting that in the man's face, like, I have the ability to do this to me. Don't mess with me.
Okay. No, those are good perspectives because I didn't come up with either one of those. I thought that since he was able to walk away, that the Zeta were in that particular encounter were concerned about other things that didn't want to waste their time with him or spend too much time. I think they were there for other reasons. And it just so happened he happened to be in the same area and they were partially cloaked. And like he said, it looked like a bowl of spaghetti moving around inside it. So I think there were multiple Zetas in that orb. And after he had his encounter, they were gone. So, but no, that's, I'm glad you guys had a different perspective than I did, but the whole idea was to expose people to a little more in-depth knowledge about the orbs and what an orb actually is. And it's a partially cloaked Zeta. And so,
and there very much could have been more than one Zeta, as I had said before the break. they travel and they have the ability of traveling as 1 to 100 to 1,000 in the same orb. So there could have been 50 in that orb right in front of him, or it could have been 1, and you don't really know until they reveal themselves.
Right, right. So
Saxon, I have a question for you, because this is all very interesting. Do you think there is a possibility that he was just being tested to see how much knowledge he could, his capacity, how much he could absorb, to see if he was worthy of pursuit? Do you think that could be a case?
It's a possibility. They, from what I gather from conversations, numerous hundreds of conversations that I've had with this individual, they determine your value by your knowledge and if you're a worthy target or not. Some will be used as pawns, as in the Bigfoot Odyssey case. Some would be used for, we haven't really gotten into this topic yet, but for sexual encounters, because they are not, they do not have reproductive organs. And in order to experience what the individual I'm in contact with states as the strongest drug on the planet, a human orgasm is the strongest drug on the planet. And this is what they crave. So if they can experience it and create it themselves, then they will find human hosts that have the ability to provide this to them. And when they're connected to that person's sacral chakra, it's like they are getting a front row experience to it, where they can literally have that orgasm that the human is having simultaneously.
So you know what I didn't say that I initially thought? I thought they were scanning his mind to find out if he was a threat to their existence. And they determined he wasn't, and they moved on. So that was, flashing all those memories and things.
I particularly wouldn't go that route, because I know that they do not have a match. There is no one that can contest them. They are arrogant for a reason, because they know they are the top of the food chain.
Right.
Okay. So I don't think that they were particularly threatened by him. I think this was a chance to find out what is going on inside that man's mind, if he's intelligent enough. You realize throughout history, especially in the missing 411 disappearances, which we'll get into later on, that a lot of the people that disappear are scientists. They are the most intelligent and the smartest people on this planet. And a lot of them are German. A lot of them are scientists of some sort, mathematicians, professors. These are not the people that disappear, that usually get taken. They're not typically the bottom of the barrel. They're taken for a purpose.
So
either to be studied or taken their DNA to help make more intelligent human hybrids.
So what I meant by threat was not a physical threat from this guy. It was more of a knowledge threat, like he knows who we are type of. That was the threat I was referring to, not a physical threat from, this guy to a Zeta. It was like, let's see what this guy knows. All right, he didn't know about us. We're good. And then they moved on to probably more lucrative targets. But that's, again, I'm theorizing.
Yeah, that's a possibility. And the individual I'm in contact with, he's said numerous times that you will find more Zetas in churches and in congregations that meet in churches more than any other place on this planet. And they literally hunt these places looking for targets that they can either exploit, or especially in the music industry, professional sports, and Hollywood,
Well,
they
hold
will
that thought.
they'll
This-
dangle the carrot right in front of them.
So hold
and be
that
like,
thought. This next one you're going to like, because
all right,
TJ has been waiting for this one, and you as well. And so this next homework assignment had to do with the facts by How to Hunt, Steve's channel. And it had to do with these two soldiers that were at an LPOP. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a listening post, observation post in Afghanistan near the Paki-Afghanistan border. And their mission was to determine if and how many fighters were coming across this part of the border. And so they were observing, and they were observing day and night. And in this particular encounter happened at night. Now, it just so happens these two individuals, they were both Army. They were both, I think, senior NCOs, or at least they finished up that way. Now, typically, that's not what senior NCOs would do, but in this case, that's what,
I'm pretty sure they were a sniper team too.
So they're out there and they're watching these Taliban, and they're watching through thermal, and there's some distance, so they're not like really close by. But then they see these Taliban start getting their asses kicked by some kind of creature that they hadn't seen before. It was a Dogman. And the Taliban were trying to fight back. Actually, it was interesting in the fact that how this started, because it was almost 3 a.m. One guy was asleep, one guy was awake. And the guy that was awake sensed something was about to go down. And about 5 minutes before it went down, he wakes up his battle buddy. It's like, hey, shit's about to go down. And of course, he's looking, I don't see anything yet. And all of a sudden, shit starts to go down. And, but so as if watching Dogman take out the Taliban isn't exciting enough, then they see this light, and these other even bigger creatures jump out of this, what some people say a portal. Well, it's not a portal, but and they start kicking the Dogman's ass. So anyway, so Saxon, why don't you tell us what you think was going on there?
Well, there's a very large misconception between what a portal is and what is really happening.
Okay, so in 10 minutes or less, tell us what you think was happening.
So basically, the black shimmer was either one aircraft, a cloaked Zeta aircraft, or it was just an entrance. And the blue one was a different entrance and maybe a different aircraft or a different door on the same aircraft. But either way, they're not portals. They're actually, there's a Zeta aircraft with incredible technology beyond our comprehension that we're just starting to learn about it. And 99.99% of the United States, or even even outside of the global population, has no idea that these entities or their technology even exists. So that's where basically it is a cloaked aircraft that is utilized by Sasquatch for the purposes of concealment. And they're able to do what they need to without prying eyes seeing what's being done.
Okay. So TJ, what did you think of that episode?
Well, I saw three ups going down at the same time. You had the you had the observe and report team, which was Saxon's correct. They're normally a sniper team because they're probably carrying at least a 338 Lapua. As a minimum. And then you had the Dogmen that were being directed. That was a direct action against the Taliban group. And that was a different organization responsible for that. And then you had a Zeta
craft come up in support of the Bigfoot that jumped off. And there was an A team and a B team. A team engaged the Dogman and started taking them down. And then they called the B team in. And that was part of the cleanup and the removal of the Dogman bodies to sanitize the entire site and get it all cleaned up. And nobody was worried about what was left of the Taliban other than the sniper team up on the side of the hill observing this whole thing. Couldn't believe their eyes how these Dogman creatures just tore these poor Taliban guys limb from limb. And then at the very end, which is pretty amazing to me, the Bigfoot approached this team and kept their distance, and even had a female appear to them to deliver the message that, hey, you know, everything's cool. It's all right.
Out of the blue.
Yeah, out of the blue. Exactly right. And then here's the part that blows my mind, because I'm into crystals. I believe in the power of crystals. And there was 2 crystals, one for each of those guys, placed on the rock in front of them. And it was given to them specifically for personal protection for later on in their lives. And I've even left a crystal out here just to test that. And man, they took it in a heartbeat. I never saw that crystal again. It was amazing at one of my gifting sites. But I thought that whole story had a lot of data points in there, and that's just my takeaway from it. I believe everything Saxon said also too. Cloaked ship, different doors opening up, you know, teams coming out, trash going back in, and then disappearing. I believe all that stuff too.
All right, so here's my take
If I
on that.
if I may clarify a little bit, I think that the first Bigfoot were having a little bit more difficulty with the Dogman than expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a yell by the leader to have even stronger and larger brutes to come out of that same portal. And they were a couple of feet taller and a couple of feet wider than the ones that went in the first time. And when they engaged the Dogmen, it was no contest. They absolutely decimated them.
So who do you think, Saxon, and Hunter, who was tasking the Dogmen in that case?
So I'm glad you asked, because I was going to reveal how I had analyzed that situation. So here you got these guys at their LPOP observing, doing their mission. Of course, the government's got multiple people out there that don't always observe passage of lines or communications, because they all have their own little agenda. On the military side, we communicate. The only people that I think that I've heard were poor communicators was Marsoff when they were out there. A lot of the SF guys complained about them. And then, of course, agency type of stuff. So in this case, I think you got the Army who's on mission, observing a Taliban possible crossing point, and the agency shows up to take out some Dogmen. I'm not Dogman, Taliban with Dogmen. So the Zetas want to keep all this a secret. So the Zetas are like, we're taking out the Dogmen. They're not supposed to be doing this. And so they show up.
Too visible. Too
Yeah.
much visibility.
Right. They show up in their cloaked ship, which is, by the way, is organic. And we humans cannot operate it. It's not the kind of
That's
technology.
right, but it's biological.
Right. Biological. So the Zetas show up in a cloaked ship. Bigfoot jumps out with his, I don't know, a dozen or so of his best friends. And they take out they start working on the Dogmen. And they're having some trouble. And so the B team is called out to come and provide support. So now you got the whole team out there now taking out these Dogmen. So as the guy said, they walked into a portal and then they threw these dead Dogmen into another portal. Well, as Saxon Warlord said, I think they walked they stepped out of the ship. They picked up the evidence when it was done, the perpetrators, the Dogman, and threw them into the ship for disposal elsewhere. So there's no evidence. Now, why do I think that? Well, TJ, I'm glad you asked. Because when the guys get back, they get questioned big time by some guys in suits that shouldn't have even been there to question them to begin with. You know what I mean? But since their operation went south and there's 2 witnesses, what did you see? Why? How? And, so they got wire brushed, in that interview over what they may or may not have seen. And if they hadn't seen anything, why would the suits be there anyway? And why would
that operation was probably visible on satellite feed or SATCOM the entire time? Some suits were probably watching the whole thing happen in DC.
Well, yeah, not only that, but there would have been a handler with the Dogmen somewhere that would have called in or reported in. I don't think they would have been alone. Whether that person was actually on site or observing, just like the LPOP team was, and they come back and they say, hey, we saw this. Well, now you're already tickling the agencies that are there with information that, oh, you saw this? Tell us what you saw. And so they want to get a different perspective and then make sure they silence these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think the agency got their drawers handed to them by the Zetta. I can't say that I'm heartbroken over that, but I'm no friend of the Zetta either. So the Bigfoot were there. Just to be clear, the Bigfoot do not like the Zetta. The Bigfoot that were there were either under Zetta control or they were Bigfoot collaborators. And just so you guys know, I have a glossary page of these terms that we're using that will be available from Saxon Warlord on his shared drive if you guys want the material. There's a whole 4 or 5 pages of glossary, just terms that are different than what you guys may know. So that'd be worth having. I can't just show it all here because that'd just take up too much time. But Bigfoot collaborators are just what they sound like. So when you go back to anyone that's enslaved in our history, there's always been those indigenous people that were enslaved, and some of them actually helping their captors. They get special favors or special treatment or privileges, or in some cases pay to turn on their own. And Bigfoot is no different. And that's why in some of the stories you've heard where people have had encounters with Bigfoot, and then they say that, no, that one's a mean one. That was an evil one. We're not safe when he's around. And then if this collaborator knows you're having a habituation situation with Bigfoot, he comes and he threatens you, and he threatens the Bigfoot that have broken the rules. So,
I would put them equivalent to some of the Jews that were in Auschwitz that were literally helping out the Nazis kill them.
Sure, and same way with in Americans' history with slavery in the South. So,
but the individual, my military contact, that's pretty much how he described the collaborators. He said, I would put it similar to how certain Jews would do things for favors by the Nazis, by helping the Nazis actually kill their own people.
Right. So moving on to the next one. So I thought that was a pretty exciting encounter. That now, of course, the guys seeing this looked at it differently, but you had so much happening in such a short period of time. And I doubt I can't say that, but I don't know if people are creative enough to come up with such an elaborate story that was, the way that was.
I'd rather be experiencing what those two went through rather than the interaction with the red-haired giant, the giant of Kandahar.
Yeah. So anyway,
Same
moving
here.
on to the next one, World Bigfoot Radio. Now, I have to tell you that the Duke does a lot of good research. He's out there a lot. And for those people that that are into Bigfoot research, I would recommend you subscribe and watch some of the stuff. So in this case, they captured a partially cloaked Bigfoot. And of course, at the time, they didn't know what they were looking at. But as we got into it, and you go to the 30-minute mark, you can actually see a distortion in the background. And in the next photo, they actually outline where that distortion is. And that distortion is because there is a partially cloaked Bigfoot standing right there in front of them, and they captured it on film. They knew that there was something there. They couldn't see it, but the picture captured it. And so let me share my screen real quick, and I'll show you guys what that picture is. So give me 1 second. All right, so here we go. So this is what I'm talking about. Notice in this picture, you see things that are distorted. This is from their picture, their camera. And you see these logs don't line up. They're slightly off. And there's
It's like
something,
it's like they have the predator, the predator right in front of them.
so they don't know what they're looking at or what it is. They just know that they can't see it, but there's something there. And so in the next picture, they actually outlined it. And now you can see that there's something there. And I would argue that that's a partially cloaked Bigfoot. Because it was cloaked, you wouldn't see it. And so here we have another picture of a partially cloaked Bigfoot. This Bigfoot right here in the photo is watching this girl take a shower out in the woods with the jungle.
That's not creepy at all.
Right. And so this is just, that happens to be with, on that. But, we've talked about many things. And so here, this is a partially cloaked Zetta, which appears as an orb. And over here on this side, you see the orb, actually, the Zetta uncloaking. And no, I don't have a picture of the Zetta uncloaked. I do have pictures of Zetta, but not in this particular picture. This is turns out to be a Zetta-Human hybrid. Now, just understand that with this particular creature, they don't have hair. They have to wear clothes until they cloak. And when they cloak, the clothes fall off. So they're out here in the wilderness and whatnot, and they're not like Bigfoot. They don't have lots of hair to keep them warm. So this was captured by Colorado Bigfoot. They didn't know what they captured. They came back, it was gone. But you can see it looks like a guy with a broad nose wearing some kind of cloaked attire, as in like a hoodie type of thing, and something.
Got his face covered too.
So you can see here, not all Bigfoot have a conical shaped head. So the Bigfoot, their origins, from Nephilim and then being genetically modified, they have as many different looks as humans do. So just keep that in mind. You'll hear researchers, well, it didn't have a conical shaped head, so it must not have been a Bigfoot. Well, that's not the only characteristic you look for when you're, researching or trying to identify an unidentified creature. Your mid-tarsal break. This is what was introduced to Bigfoot, during that big push of genetic manipulation. And what that allows them to do is it allows the foot to bend in half, basically. How is that an advantage for them? It allows them to comfortably walk on 4 legs versus just 2, because humans have flat feet. So in this case, it allows them, 1, to walk on all 4s comfortably. 2, it allows them to climb trees easily because their foot, breaks in half basically, and it helps them get up steep terrain quickly, something that humans can't do. So now this
Which is
feature,
why they're able to climb up like 60-degree inclines with at like 30 miles per hour, which is just unbelievable.
right. So now this just shows where the Zeta originally arrived, 12,000 plus years ago, and where the original Bigfoot came from, where they were captured. They were giant Caucasian people that called themselves Nephilim. Here we look at the sacral chakra. That's where Zeta connects and controls other beings, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, reptilian, or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Zetas come from this area, the Orion Nebula. That's why when not everyone calls the Zeta. Now, I don't know if that is because they're afraid of using that name or whether that's what they were told or they just don't know. So like I know Megan Rose calls them the Orion Group. This is a brief timeline that goes through the last 300,000 years or so. So it's
13,000 years to flawlessly suppress every single thing that they have been able to hide from humanity. It's unbelievable.
So here you have
Like
a
wipe the
Zeta
slate
that's
clean completely.
this guy's actually watching the cameraman. Here you have a Zeta god skull. And then the Zeta tarantulan, you can see, is quite a bit different than the god when it comes to their body and particularly their head, their skull. So well, gentlemen, we have 1 minute left. So
About 5 years ago, I was just trying to branch out and look at other sources, and I found a medium. Her name was Jamie Butler, and she actually channeled with a number of different creatures. One of them was the Palladians for sure, and then a tall, gray, skinny, and then a couple other characters. And the information that she was able to glean from those sessions was amazing. And I'm still going back to reference that today.
so hold that thought. Let's take a quick break and we'll jump back on. So just to recap the last segment, we covered Megan Rose about Robert Earl White having this encounter with an orb. We went on to cover from Steve's channel, the facts on how to hunt, about these two soldiers encounter with Dogman and Bigfoot and something else in Afghanistan. And we just looked at some pictures as well as covering what World Bigfoot Radio uncovered on one of their expeditions. And that was a partially cloaked Bigfoot. So there is another one. I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to look at, TJ, but it had to do with the Alaska Triangle. Were you guys able to get to that one?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
So how about that? What do you think about that, TJ?
I think there are vast underground complexes and ancient buildings that still haven't been discovered that might still be in use today. I did mention in my book that most people are totally unaware that there are beautiful, giant, ancient pyramids on all over, on almost every continent on this globe. And they think when you mention pyramid, oh yeah, the pyramids of Giza there in Egypt, and that's that. But no, I mean, there's one of the oldest pyramids to date is in Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Right. So what I was looking into this, and Saxon Warlord and I both, and I got a little deeper into it, and I came up with some more sources. And everyone's kind of pointing to the same thing. These pyramids were rudimentary 0-point energy sources. So I'll have a definition of what that is in an upcoming episode, but 0 point basically means the energy is not necessarily originating from one source, like a battery, like your wall charger. And it has to do with Tesla energy. And I don't want to make this an episode about that, but this is something they discovered, the Zetas knew about long ago. And in order to create this kind of environment, the structure of the pyramid was used to create this 0-point power source that is shaped like a pyramid that, as we've discussed, is all over the world. So,
Correct.
but what
And
I
it
found
has
out,
something to do with different types of stone that they use and its reaction with water.
that could be too. I'm just scratching the surface on that. So
This is one of the biggest reasons why in the missing 411 disappearances, a lot of people, when they disappear from large area of magnetic rock or granite, large amounts of granite or bodies of water.
now it just so happens they discovered these pyramids where in Alaska?
Not too
You're
far
Hayes?
from Mount Hayes.
How about that? Mount Hayes. And so for those of you guys that don't know, Mount Hayes is, you could say, a Zeta and other cryptid collection point right now. So Mount Hayes is going to play a special role in this series of discussions about the Zeta. And there's actually, in part 3, we're going to talk specifically about a very large, well-known encounter in Alaska with Zetas.
You could consider Mount Hayes as an actual realistic version of hell.
Yeah, true. And it's ground zero.
Because that's where their leader was. And I don't know if you want to get into that now,
Nope,
but that's
nope.
where he was.
People will already be going into that already without me even throwing it out there. So when they start seeing the definitions and the terms and the timeline, they'll be like, wait, who the hell is this guy, Satan? What, same guy? You know, I can hear it now. So let's
Ding,
skip
ding.
that. Skip that for now. But so I found it interesting that these guys would talk about the Alaska Triangle and find underground pyramids and have Mount Hayes all in the same episode. So I'm like, oh shit, this is like a bunch of things coming together at once. A place I was going to go already, and they kind of did it for me. So without getting too deep into that, you guys need to watch that episode and fill in the blanks that you have as far as, you know, the audience goes. But the last
You
thing,
you actually have even larger pyramids found in Antarctica and up in Siberia.
yeah, but that's not part of this conversation. So that's for other researchers to do. I'm throwing out the theory. I need other people to do some of the heavy lifting, you know, where it falls into their backyard, especially. But so the last thing I really got, and I know TJ, you touched on this earlier. So I found 2 episodes of 2 different research groups that had done some interesting studies on Bigfoot hair, crypto reality on YouTube, and impossible visits on YouTube. Both of them talk about camouflage that the Sasquatch is able to use based on their type of hair. And they have a lot of transparent hair. And so the transparency allows them to blend into their surroundings. So in addition to having the ability to cloak, which is already you'd think is good enough, they don't always want to be cloaked. And I don't know the reason why, whether it takes more energy to do so, or it takes more effort, or if they're injured or hurt or too young or too old, can they still cloak easily? I don't know what the level of effort is to cloak. Some do it quite easily. Others seem to not do it or not worry about it. The same way with Dogman. So there's unanswered questions that people are going to have. Why don't they cloak all the time? Well, some of them do. And some don't. Some reveal themselves for whatever reason. So now I understand that when they cloak, it also suspends all their biological or nutritional requirements while they're cloaked. In other words, they don't have to eat, they don't have to eat, they don't have to drink, they don't have to go to the bathroom. In many cases, we see these beings and they just disappear. Like, I know these guys are on my property somewhere and I can't see them. They were just here. Where'd they go? Whether it's, a group of Dogmen, whether it's a Bigfoot, well, it's because they cloaked. And because of their DNA, not only they cloak, they may have passed right through the ground to go to that underground base that they live at. And so this is why these things are hard to see during the day. It's not because, some people will say that we're just imagining things. It was a bear. It was something else. I mean, this is all the stuff that your fish and game and police like to tell you. Oh, you must have seen a cow. No, cows don't climb trees, or, whatever.
Yeah, anyone who's watching right now, take this down as a fact. You're not going to see a bear walking on two legs for more than 3 feet. There's no need for them to do that. The only time that they would be going up on their hind legs is to reach something that they can't reach in a tree, or when they're trying to make themselves as large as possible to scare away another predator or something that's scaring them. That's it.
So Saxon Warlord, hold that thought for a second, because I know there is some bedwetter on Reddit that's going to show you the video of this bear walking on his hind legs that they videotaped in New Jersey because he had hurt his front paws. And so he's walking across somebody's backyard on his back legs. And so
let's see it running at 50 miles per hour.
Well, I was going to get to that. They can move on two legs. They don't do it easily, gracefully, or comfortably. In this case, this particular black bear in New Jersey had an excuse, and that's because his front paws were injured. Yeah, they can't run and they can't do the athletic things that people do.
You don't have hundreds of emails of people seeing these things clocking at 50 to 60 miles per hour, right, standing next, like keeping up with cars and trucks. That is not a bear, and there's no way anybody's going to be able to prove that it's a bear.
So back to the last two videos, which had to do with camouflage. I thought the researchers did an incredible job proving their point. And I'm surprised that more researchers haven't clambered onto that bandwagon as part of their understanding of Bigfoot. So they do make a very compelling argument that I find to be perfectly plausible, if and supportable, just based on, now I haven't had a Bigfoot encounter that I know of, but I've seen pictures and I've heard other people describe situations where they perfectly blended in with their surroundings. And that there's some animals that do. You won't notice them until they move. And you're like, hey, I saw movement out the corner of my eye, and you look, and then you see the thing. Otherwise, you've walked up on them, and so that's another capability that I think goes oftentimes unnoticed is that ability for them to camouflage with their environment. So,
And the type of hair or the color of the hair is determined by the territory that they live. So if you got ones that are typically in Siberia or upper state China, Russia, those are typically going to be white or gray or light gray. You see a lot of black ones and dark brown in Florida and in the southern states. And then you have a lot of reddish brown or light brown in the northern Pacific states. And the same thing goes back to the more mountainous areas in upper state New York and Maine and New Hampshire. You'll see the white ones up there again, or the lighter colors.
so let's do a quick recap on this particular episode. So this was about establishing the existence of another creature called a Zetta, and how they had basically created today's Bigfoot from Nephilim. Now I understand the origins of Dogman are not as long as the origins of Bigfoot. And I understand that Dogman was created about 900 years ago by the same guys, gave him some of the same capabilities. And in this particular case, they also had the ability to cloak, do mind speak. And we're not certain about their nuclear DNA, except that it does contain Zeta DNA. They have many of the same characteristics as the Bigfoot. Now, they don't view their size as any kind of advantage because they hunt small game. And generally, when they encounter a human, they leave the area.
I was just going to say that they were created for the same purposes as human hybrids, to kill humans in national parks and national forests, specific areas where Zeta bases are, and deep state dumps. All right, that was their purpose. However, the Dogmen, they don't typically attack humans because they have mostly the innate abilities of a wolf, or just like a regular canine. So that kind of backfired, and that's why they don't typically go after humans, though the human hybrids will.
Right. So there's not a lot of evidence to support them executing their true purpose, as at least I don't have a lot of evidence to support that. If it's true, then that's being covered up even more so than we thought. But that being said, so we know then about the Bigfoot, we know about the Dogman. The one thing that's missing in all this, which has some good capabilities as well, is the werewolf. And so for those people that don't know what the fuck a werewolf is, I'm not talking about Hollywood or mythology. It's a creature, okay? And so I'm guessing, and I'm strictly guessing, because none of our contacts are aware of this being a Zeta creature. And they know about all the other Zeta creatures except for this one. So it could be that the werewolf is created by somebody else, and it is a real creature. And no, it doesn't turn into a man or any other bullshit that I hear people talk about. It is that way all the time. Now, I'm trying to rationalize in my mind how this would have been created versus the Dogman. So the Dogman, you started with 100% mitochondrial DNA from a wolf. I'm wondering if they simply reversed this for the werewolf. And so I'm spitballing here, so just don't take me to the bank on this theory, okay? So what if they started with the mitochondrial DNA of a human to make the werewolf. And then they, on the nuclear DNA, they inserted canine, Zeta, other things, a menagerie of capabilities they wanted this creature to have. The only thing is, the people that know about Zetas are pretty much in denial that this was part of the things that the Zetas created. And so, which leads me to believe that if that's true, then somebody else must have created it at some point. But I mean, so before people start hitting me up in the comments section, like, hey, did the Zetas create the werewolf too? Like, I don't freaking know. And that's been a question that I've hammered Saxon Warlord with 100 times over the last year. And him and I have both been working that upside down, backward, inside out, and we can't get a real answer for that. So just,
the only theory I have on where that actually originated from is they took a Dogman that was already created by the Zetas, and then they further genetically enhanced it to be even more have even more human intelligence and even more crazy strength and speed. And probably the CIA was behind that.
No. This is an antiquity. This thing's been around a while. CIA wasn't even thought of. So this thing is so different than a Dogman. You might as well be comparing cats and dogs. Okay, so it's got straight legs, no tail. It looks like an ugly, hairy human, or
Yeah, ears on the side, not on the top of the head.
Yeah,
I don't know where the heck that thing came from.
Yeah, or a different looking type of Bigfoot that some people like to call a gugway, or they'll make some other exotic name up that existed in Indian lore, 200 years ago, but doesn't exist today. So I've gone back and forth with different people, and so what am I going to say? I mean, I'm like, show me your research. Well, how do you know it's a gugway? Well, it looks like a gugway. Well, what's a gugway look like? Well, it looks like this thing. Well, no, actually, gugway has a definition, and it was reported by, the Iroquois and the Micmac Indians having a particular, characteristics that don't match this thing. So, and oftentimes the few times I pursued this and looked into it, they're calling a werewolf a gugway. I'm like, no, dude, that creature already has a name. It already has a purpose, and it's not what a gugway was. And
the gugways are known to be more aggressive and have sharp, jagged teeth instead of the flat, typical teeth that a Sasquatch has. So a gugway is not a type of Sasquatch. It is this other creature, cryptid called a werewolf. There is no gugway.
Well, so if you go and look in the cryptid encyclopedia, gugways are listed, and their source of origin and their description and all the alternative names they have for that particular creature. But people don't have that book apparently, or they don't do their own research, and they latch on to a name that they think is cool, and it becomes their favorite name and their favorite creature after that. And I'm coining something that Johnny Henderson.
Same thing as Dogman Type 3 and Type 4.
Yeah, those are, I guess they're sick of that stupid chart. So I know TJ and I go back and forth about that, and John Bell too.
Ridiculous.
So, but I mean, but people don't know what to call the different variants that you have out there. So many types have been reported, but it's when I walk into an animal shelter or a dog park, I see German Shepherd, I see Dalmatian, I see the little drop kick dogs, like whatever they're called. I don't know. There's a couple of them.
What I was told by one of my military contacts was they chose not the scariest, but some of the most dangerous type of canines, and turned those things into the Dogman. So people have said that they've seen the Timberwolf one. That's the most popular one, obviously. Yes. The black one, all day. Yes. Then people have said that I didn't see anything that looked like a timber wolf or a wolf. It looked like a hyena. It's because it was a hyena, but they genetically mutated it or modified it with a human, and there is a Dogman style variant that was made with a black spotted hyena. And I can actually find if I need to, there's a video running around YouTube where you can hear a hyena in the woods and in the United States.
Right. And I've heard some of that. I've seen some of that too. I don't deny any of that. As a matter of fact, TJ has been dying to jump in and correct me. So
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I've seen 5 Dogmen in my lifetime. All in the daytime. 2 were females, 3 were males. 4 of them were handsome creatures. What's the name of that dog hunter? The Malinois or something like that. It's got the big, tall, black
Doberman
ears.
Pinscher?
No, not a pincher, because they crop the ears to get them to stand up.
So what you're
Malinois, is that what it is?
I don't know, but you're identifying what I think is the true dog.
Yeah. So 4 of the 5 looked like that. Beautiful creatures. They were not
with the ears of Anubis.
Yeah, straight up, tall, on top.
Yeah.
So 4 of them looked like that. Of course, I saw these at a distance. The closest one was the one that was in the tree limb in that story on Leslie's channel. But the 5th one was like something right out of Underworld. He was up on top of a knoll, skylining himself, and that was freaky, scary shit there. I'm telling you. I had to do a double take on that, and he was huge. He was twice my size. So that was the 5 that I actually saw. And then I was lucky enough to see one werewolf creature years ago before I even saw the Dogman. He was up in the, I was doing a walkabout for a 3-day weekend, and he was up in the Cloudcroft, Ruidoso, New Mexico area, and pulling meat and bones off of a dead elk as I was waking up and the sun was coming up over the horizon, and it was about 400 yards away. And it was pulling the stuff off. I thought it was a bear at first, having breakfast. And then I said, oh, no, man, I'm seeing a Sasquatch. That is so cool. Until it grabbed the bone and the meat and pulled it to its chest and raised up and looked straight in my direction. It knew I was there, 400 yards away. And I didn't even move in. I was nestled up in between a rock formation, because that's where I spent the night under my poncho. It looked straight at me. And of course, I'm looking with binos. So it was eye-to-eye contact. It chill went up my back. The thing stood completely up, turned and disappeared, ran off like a man. No tail, nothing. I could not tell if it was a male or female from that distance, and it moved out fast. But it was there to collect breakfast. And I knew it wasn't a Bigfoot. It clearly was not a Bigfoot, because it matched all the characteristics, of that third category we call the werewolf. And that was it. That was it. I've had more Bigfoot encounters. I had 2 face-to-face, one at night, one the day, where you make the eye contact with them. And that is very unique, because that's where you see the emotion and the expression, and there's a communication going on there. They're trying to size you up, trying to figure you out. Are you going to cause problems or not? No, I'm not. I'm going to stay right here. You stay right there. Everything's cool. And then, of course, those are the 2 face-to-face Bigfoot. And then the rest were fleeting, coming in, going out, disappearing. You catching a side shot of them crossing the road, or a fire break or something. And so it's been amazing, and since 1984 for me. But the Dogman is a very unique creature. But and I got tons of questions, like the agency that likes to employ these Dogman creatures against other human beings, what they're thinking. well, here our handlers are human beings and they're using us to destroy other human beings. So, what kind of value is there and how are they thinking, that this is justified in any way, shape, or form? So there's a lot of psychological perspectives and conditioning that's going on there as well. It's interesting. The three of us could sit down with a cold beer and a couple of burgers and just talk all night long, I'm sure.
Yep, no doubt.
Easily.
So, hey, just so you guys know, before we run out of time, because I'm going to wrap this up here shortly, our next episode, once I get this up, and it'll be the same kind of deal. There'll be a gap as I'm pulling together more research material, but we're going to get specifically into missing 411 and just what TJ was talking about is other humans that are hiding the existence of these creatures from us, that then we become victims of what they do to us. And so, I just covered a year ago the LBL story, classic example. How many government employees tried to cover that up? How many employees that work at the LBL covered this up, and families lost their lives? And those are the only ones we were talking about was, that particular incident, not all the ones that have happened since then. That was 40 years ago.
Oh yeah, the LBL is a family-friendly and an extremely safe place to go camping. Tell that to the families of the 10, the family members of the 10 people that got massacred by either a werewolf or a dogman or both.
So yeah, I covered that.
That place is a hot spot, and there's more than likely, I think that there's a Zeta base in that area, which is why there's so much activity.
So before we get too deep on that, part of an interview, when Jeff was interviewing Victor was talking about the different things that his guys had killed in the LBL. Lots of dogmen, lots of werewolves, a few Bigfoot, and then 2 unidentified. Okay. Unidentified because what? You shot them up so bad you can't identify them? No. That's just what they're called, unidentified. So what's an unidentified? An unidentified.
Probably a human hybrid.
Yes, exactly. And it is the same term that other agencies use to describe that creature when they find it. It's a unidentified. You're not allowed to use the name Zeta if you're government and you even know about them. Most people wouldn't, but if that name has trickled down to you from some place, you're not allowed to use that.
They carry clubs, they carry spears, they'll wear animal skin, and they kind of look like cavemen. And one of the most identifying characteristics about a human hybrid that you will ever hear in your life, you revert back to every single Sasquatch, UFO encounter, weird shit that people experienced in the woods. And as soon as you hear that person or that group of people said, or either in text or on video, that they smelt BO, otherworldly BO, the worst smelling BO they've ever smelt in your life, that is a human hybrid. That is their MO. That is how you'll know what you're dealing with. Sasquatch do not smell bad. They don't smell like garbage, and they don't smell like BO. They smell like the forest, and they smell like dirt, maybe a little bit of a smell of a dog or hair, a wet, musky smell. But if you smell, or if you read about or hear anything about anyone smelling BO from hell, that is a human hybrid. And that person was very lucky to be walking away from that situation.
So TJ, first of all, I don't believe that, Saxon Warlord. Bigfoots do smell, and there's been a million encounters where people could smell them. And TJ encounters them all the freaking time. TJ, what do they smell like?
Yeah, the ones that I was in close encounter with, especially the ones that were cloaked and that were leading me or escorting me, the first thing that hit me when I stepped into the tree line was the smell. And it is a musky, swampy, because this is a swamp over here, little bit of feces mixed in with it. And
Yeah,
maybe,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this, the Sasquatch will smell musky or get that wet dog and feces smell. But if you smell BO, human BO,
there's a
from
difference.
another world, that is a human hybrid. That's the difference.
And there is a difference. I know that for sure. There are other times when I get a very nasty urine ammonia smell, really heavy.
That is more than likely a dog man with the urine smell.
Yeah, like he peed on his legs while he's, walking down the trail.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've smelled everything but that really nasty BO smell that you mentioned. I've smelled the rest. And
yeah,
I've
listened to a lot of Steve's channel videos and even some Dixie Cryptid and maybe even some Cryptid Canada. When people have mentioned that they haven't seen anything, they can't see anything, but they smell like there's someone with the worst BO they've ever smelled within 10 feet of them. That is some freaky shit, because they are within 10 feet of the worst and the most deadly predator this planet has ever known. And they have no idea.
Just to clarify, just so you know, don't allow people to confuse a Zetta-Human hybrid with a real Neanderthal type of caveman, a feral person. So those are two separate things, and both exist. There's plenty of reports about them, and you would not confuse the two. First of all, a Zetta-Human hybrid's not going to be friends with others of its kind. They're mentally unstable. So they don't run around in groups together like some of the ones that people have reported seeing in the Appalachians or the Blue Ridge Mountains.
The human hybrids originated from the World War II super soldiers that were created by Nazi German scientists. However, they were so unstable and dangerous that they ended up killing every single scientist that was working with them, and they had to scrub the mission because it was too dangerous. However, that technology didn't just disappear. It wasn't buried. It was brought over to the United States for a more nefarious purpose.
Right. All right, folks. Hey, this wraps up tonight's episode. Hope you guys had got a lot out of this. I know researchers, I didn't put enough real content in this to really wet your whistle. So by all means, leave comments. If you have questions, what we're going to end up doing is I'll collect all the questions and we'll do a Q&A session at the end. Thanks for everyone thank you guys for coming on. And
no problem.
Just so you know, the next episode, we're going to get deep into missing 411. Why are all these people missing in parks, and what's happening to them? Now, granted, some are recovered, some are found living. Some you can trace their disappearance to something in particular, but there are many, 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 many that their disappearance can't be traced to anything that we know about. And
no smell, no scent trail.
So this is where the topic of the Zetta is going to play a very big part. And then you have people that also are dying of unknown causes that can't be determined by an autopsy. And that's also going to play a big part in the next episode. So
fairly recently too, only 4 months ago.
So hopefully you guys will tune into that. And researchers, I hope that you found some of this valuable, and we're willing to collaborate on any of this stuff or provide you any of our research with regards to that. And if for those of you guys that want access to the material, send a email to saxonwarlord2@gmail.com, and he will grant you access to his shared drive, which is where we keep all this material. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, TJ and Saxon Warlord, for coming on. And once I put together the outline for the next one, we'll do this again maybe in a week or so.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.